Naming the characters in your screenplay is something that is so important. I spend a lot of time on this because the hallmark of a really great, masterful screenplay is it's effortless to read. And the problem with character names, you can either use them to make your script more reader-friendly, or they can make your screenplay difficult, if not impossible to read. So let's find out the do's and don'ts of naming your characters.
Let's do it.
The first thing to keep in mind is do not make names too similar. I'm sure Neo and Nemo's Excellent Adventure would be a most awesome movie.
Wake up, get up, get up. Time for school, time for school, time for school, time for school.
All right, I'm up. It's time for school.
Who are you?
Nemo?
Why am I here?
Huh?
You haven't answered my question. Whether no one told me, or no one knows. This is about Zion.
Really?
But trying to read the script and keep the names Neo and Nemo straight would make your brain go. You don't want Nathaniel, Natalie, and Norman, or Carl and Clive. Avoid character names with the same first letter, but also avoid characters where the end of the name is all the same as well. You don't want Christy, Kathy, and Mandy, or just any two names that are too similar, like Ron and Bob. Then you also don't want to make them all too short, like this, or all long, like this. Those will all blend together and it'll be really tough to keep the characters straight. That also goes for using a lot of full names and titles with names. Now, I'm not talking about the name you use when you first introduce them, because you might introduce them with a full name. I'm talking about the name that you consistently use in action lines and above their speeches and dialogue. You want a mix of letters, you want a mix of length. Keep the names distinct.
Choice. The problem is choice.
The next big problem, you don't want all your character names to all kind of have the same vibe where they feel interchangeable. Let's say you have the character names Kevin, Paul, and David. Paul is a trust fund baby, David is a DJ, and Kevin is a drug dealer. So David has a sister Maria, and both Paul and Kevin like her, but she has a boyfriend Lucas, and little does she know that Lucas is cheating on her with Christy, Tabitha, and Danelle, who are all Maria's friends, and Tabitha is actually Paul's sister. Now let's play Name That Character. Which character was the DJ? Which one was the trust fund baby? Which one was the drug dealer? If you answered, I don't remember, you are correct. And that's the fault of the writer for having too many names that have the same vibe and assigning them to randomly different characters. So let's try this again. Let's name the trust fund baby Blaine. Let's have the DJ go by the nickname DJ, and we'll call the drug dealer Dougie, and fairly early on in the story we'll have one of the characters refer to him as Dougie the Druggie. So now let's see how you do. DJ has a sister Maria, and both Blaine and Dougie like her, but she has a boyfriend Lucas, and little does she know that Lucas is cheating on her with Christy, Tabitha, and Danielle, who are all Maria's friends, and Tabitha is actually Blaine's sister. Time to once again play Name That Character. Which character was the DJ? Which character was the trust fund baby? Which one was the drug dealer?
I can do this!
See how much easier that was to remember? So you want to try to match the character with the name. And certain names have different vibes. So like a Chad is different than an Arthur and different than a Damon. So keep in mind the vibe of the character and try to match it to your character name. But don't go crazy and have like your really cool lead be named Hunter Steele, or if you have someone who's emotionally unavailable, name them Stiff Woodman.
That can't be him.
You don't want to be too on the nose. But you can certainly make your character names very distinct, such as Ladybird, The Bride, Han Solo, The Dude, Hannibal Lecter, Rocky, Forrest Gump, Juno, Ace Ventura, Edward Scissorhands, Ferris Bueller, Holly Golightly, Newt, Vrobel Kint, Barton Fink, Donnie Darko, Snake Plissken, V, Willy Wonka, Austin Powers, Mrs. Doubtfire, Indiana Jones,
Henry Jones Jr.
Like Indiana.
We named the dog Indiana.
and of course,
My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Stay home and eat all the freaking chips, Kip.
Napoleon, don't be jealous that I've been chatting online with babes all day.
more things to know about naming characters. Do not name every single character unless you want the reader to reach through the script and try to choke you. That is going to be information name overload, and they will not be able to keep track of all of it. If your lead goes to a family reunion and sees their cousin and the kids for 2 seconds, we don't need names. So you want to limit that. If it's just a waitress, you can just go by their title: waitress, bartender, police officer 1 and 2. You could use a last name with it, like Mayor Peterson or Officer Peterson. And how you name your characters is going to depend on how often they show up in your screenplay. So if you did have a character's mother, you might say Elaine's mom, or Mrs. Thompson if they only show up in, say, 1 scene, 2 scenes, and you mix up the length of character names. If the whole script is about a mother-daughter relationship, then go ahead and give the mother a name, Betty, and she would be Betty throughout. Something else that will help the reader keep your name straight: avoid using androgynous names.
Really?
So like a girl named Sam or Tony or Alex. That makes it much more difficult to keep your character names straight. Now this next one is a biggie. I want to highlight this. That was highlights. So do not refer to your characters as different things in the action lines. So if you decide to name your character Steve Willis, do not sometimes refer to Steve as Steve and sometimes Willis. So if your script looked like this: Willis looks up, sees the oncoming car. In the car, Christy sees Steve on the pavement in front of her. We're gonna think that's 2 different people. Confusing.
Okay.
The same thing is true if you have a character with a title. So let's say we have Sheriff Steve Willis. You wouldn't want this in your script. Steve tears through the burning building, sees a 2-year-old girl hiding under a table. The sheriff takes off his coat, wraps it around the girl. Again, it feels like there's 2 different people in the scene when it's not. You sometimes call him Steve and you sometimes call him Sheriff. Confusing. Also, make sure you use the internet. If you have a period piece, make sure you're using names that were appropriate for that time. And baby name websites are wonderful for coming up with interesting names for your characters. So I hope this video helped you. If it did, don't forget to check out the Patreon page to become a beloved, wonderful Patreon. Otherwise, you can give it a thumbs up or subscribe, and I will talk to you later. Bye.